Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe family of companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
California is getting ready to take on the incoming Trump administration. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Governor Gavin Newsom's plan to Trump-proof the state began to take shape today with the start of the new legislative special session. KPBS reporter Andrew Dyer says abortion care access is at the top of the agenda.
California Attorney General Rob Bonta announced 2 new bills today he says will protect access to abortion care in the state. Abortion access in several states has been rolled back or eliminated since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022. Advocates fear the new Trump administration will attempt to impose similar restrictions nationwide. Bonta says California will be ready.
In California, we are not backing down. We are absolutely committed to making sure that all women have access to reproductive freedom. Full period, full stop.
The Medication Abortion Access Bill would shield manufacturers and suppliers from liability for providing abortion care in California. The second bill further empowers the Attorney General to enforce abortion access laws on local government entities in the state.
This legislation is us planning to stay ahead of the curve regardless of what the Trump administration has in store for the future of abortion care.
It's one way the state is preparing for another Trump administration. California spent $42 million fighting Trump in the courts during his first term. The governor is asking the legislature for $25 million more in anticipation of further suits. Citing the Supreme Court and Donald Trump, Bonta says decisions on these issues are decided by individual states.
It's based on what Trump does. That will dictate everything we do. We will stop him from overreaching, doing things that are unlawful, unconstitutional, and sue him in court and stop him when he does.
Bonta says the bills are aimed to protect not just California residents, but also those from other states who seek abortion care in California. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
California state lawmakers convened today to swear in new members and kickstart a special session. Governor Gavin Newsom asked lawmakers to give the state attorney general more funding in anticipation of new federal challenges from the Trump administration. Trump repeatedly attacked California on the campaign trail, threatening to withhold disaster aid, something U.S. Senator Alex Padilla mentioned in an interview yesterday.
Donald Trump has made it no secret that he has it in for California, whether it's the withholding of disaster funds. I mean, a lot of FEMA dollars that Donald Trump tried to keep from not the state government of California, but from California families, simply because it's a state that did not vote for him in the presidential election. We're trying to inoculate ourselves from those types of threats.
Trump has also promised to carry out mass deportations once he's in office. A state assembly member introduced legislation to set aside $25 million for legal fees.
Temperatures a little cooler, down to 48 degrees for tonight. Partly cloudy skies. We have a pretty steady start to the week ahead before some changes come as we look towards the weekend. I'll break all of this down for you coming up.
The National Weather Service says high tides could bring minor coastal flooding to some beaches tomorrow morning. KPBS reporter Katie Anastas says king tides could bring even more flood risk later this month.
Low-lying areas in Imperial Beach, La Jolla Shores, Del Mar, and Cardiff are at the highest risk for flooding. The National Weather Service put out the hazard message ahead of high tide this morning. Imperial Beach's marine safety captain, Jason Lindquist, says a strong current was pushing people dangerously close to the pier.
If you're not a strong ocean swimmer or surfer, probably not the day to do it. Don't surf around the pier or a jetty if you're not familiar with them and the rip currents around them. Yeah, make sure your equipment's in good working order.
2 events are contributing to the flood risk. One is what's called an astronomical high tide, which happens every full moon and new moon. Sunday, December 1st, saw a new moon. There's also a storm out in the Pacific Ocean. Meteorologist Casey Oswant says the swell is coming from the west, making western-facing beaches the most vulnerable to flooding.
The places that have the highest risk are the places that are going to see the highest surf, because that elevated surf is combining with a higher tide.
This morning's high tide in Imperial Beach was 6 feet. King tides are closer to 7 feet. That's expected to happen from December 13th to 15th.
We're going to have to see if that's going to coincide with any elevated surf, and if so, there's potential for additional coastal flooding.
Imperial Beach resident Jose Corona has seen the king tide before. He says people tend to avoid walking on the pier.
The pier will be shaking, you know. And the king tides, yeah, big time.
Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
Judicial reform is a hot topic in Mexico these days, and most recently Mexico announced plans to stop appointing federal judges and have them be elected. KPBS border reporter Gustavo Solis says a University of San Diego Law School program will play a key role in training the new judges.
Usted le da lujos a su esposa.
You are listening to a mock trial at the University of San Diego School of Law. Right now, a lawyer is cross-examining a witness.
Lo que usted le pagó clases.
Now, this lecture hall isn't filled with your typical students. Instead, they're all Mexican judges visiting San Diego for a week-long legal seminar. USD has offered workshops to lawyers and judges from Latin America for years now. Karen Sigmund is the Assistant Dean of International Programs. She says that legal professionals often need training whenever their home countries enact significant changes to their judicial systems.
For example, in Chile 30 plus years ago, they started with oral trials because of everything that the country was going through. Soon after, Argentina started with oral trials. Mexico started to look at what was happening in the rest of Latin America and looking north at what we were doing and what other models were doing.
Before switching to oral trials like the ones we have in the US, those Latin American countries often used written trials.
Everything is done through documents, through petitions, through paperwork. The person in a trial does not really see the judge. They just read a file and make a determination.
That shift has come to Mexico, which is why these state judges from Baja California are visiting San Diego. But there's an even bigger change on the horizon for Mexico's judicial system. Earlier this year, then-President Andrés Manuel López Obrador introduced a series of controversial reforms. Among other things, they make the job of a federal judge an elected position.
Para que los jueces, magistrados y ministros del Poder Judicial sean electos por el pueblo.
Supporters say the reforms increase transparency, but opponents believe that they could erode the independence of Mexico's federal court. State Judge Salvador Juan Ortiz Morales has a philosophical view of the reforms.
Para mí los cambios son inevitables, es parte de la vida y son retos.
Change is an inevitable part of life, he says. But this specific change comes with big challenges. Now, as a state judge, Ortiz Morales is not directly impacted by the federal reforms, but he believes that Baja California and other Mexican states will follow suit.
Creíamos que era una forma en que se había logrado una estabilidad.
He's worried about the lack of job stability that comes with elections. And given that uncertainty, he wonders whether Mexico's best and brightest young lawyers would even want to invest the decades of work required to become a federal judge. Ana Carolina Valencia Marquez is another participant. She says the judicial reforms will have a huge impact. She says that judges will need to accept the changes, and USD is ready to help. Again, here is Sigmund.
USD is uniquely positioned because of our expertise, because of language, because of geography, and most importantly, because we have friends in Mexico, and we believe that this is a learning process for them. It's a learning process for us.
She says staff is already coming up with workshops that specifically address the federal judicial reforms. Training could include insight from California judges who are already used to running for re-election. But for now, they're focused on helping the current transition from written to oral trials in the state legal system. Valencia Marquez says the change has been daunting, but worthwhile.
Suena simple, pero es un cambio de 360 grados.
She believes they will make the system much more transparent, a welcome change. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
Pneumonia is more likely to spread in the fall and the winter. Mandy Gaither explains who is at highest risk and what everyone can do to help prevent its spread.
Every year in the U.S., pneumonia causes more than 1 million hospitalizations and more than 50,000 deaths.
This is the time of year where respiratory viruses start picking up.
Pulmonary Dr. Joseph Cabaza with Cleveland Clinic says there are several types of infectious pneumonia, but bacteria and viruses are common causes of the lung infection. People at increased risk are adults 65 and older, and that risk continues increasing with age. And children younger than 5, the younger they are, the higher the risk. Chronic medical conditions can also put a person in danger, including heart disease, liver disease, lung disease, diabetes, and those with a weakened immune system.
The close spaces and minimal ventilation, that's kind of a perfect storm for anything that's spread via an aerosolized way.
That's why Cabaza says colder months, when people spend more time together indoors, makes it easier for all germs to spread. He says a key to protecting yourself and loved ones is vaccination.
The big three that can give us really bad viral pneumonias, let alone bad viral illnesses, are influenza, COVID, and RSV. And there is one vaccine for the most common and deadliest kind of bacterial pneumonia, which is called streptococcal pneumonia.
Cabaza says good hygiene practices can help slow the spread as well, including hand washing, not touching your face, and covering your mouth and nose when you cough or sneeze. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Researchers at UC San Diego have genetically engineered bugs that could make pest populations more vulnerable to pesticides. KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge has the story.
Many pests that eat our farm crops have been sprayed with pesticides so much that they've evolved resistance and can't be killed by them, just like some bacteria have evolved to become resistant to antibiotics. But scientists at UCSD can now genetically engineer new insects of the same species that are not resistant to pesticides, and they can easily pass on their traits when they breed with pesticide-resistant bugs. They've done it with fruit flies, and they say the same can be done with beetles, moths, and other pests. Ethan Beer is a fruit fly geneticist at UCSD.
So if you could make the insects sensitive to them again, then you could just go on using the same pesticides that we already have that work, but at much lower frequency and at much lower doses, so that the total burden that you put on the environment could go down by orders of magnitude potentially.
Mostly insecticide resistant.
This graphic shows pesticide-resistant bugs outlined in red dominating a farm field. That is, until engineered bugs are released that carry a genetic drive that eliminates the resistant mutation, so the local insects can be killed by pesticides again. Beer says the drive works quickly. It can transform a local population to being 100% pesticide vulnerable within 10 bug generations. The engineered drive is designed to disappear from the insects over that time period, so they become no different from the ones we knew prior to insecticides.
We've been able to use this genetic strategy that we've been working on, where you essentially drive a trait into a population, a beneficial trait into a population. We've been able to do that in such a way that the only thing that is left after you're done is the population is like it used to be. So you've rewilded it, and there's no genetic scar of any kind other than that. There's no other element that's added.
Even so, these bugs have undergone mutations in the lab, and releasing them into the wild could be controversial. Beer admits that. And he says all environmental regulations would need to be met before any of these creatures could be allowed to mate with wild populations. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
The Botanical Building in Balboa Park will reopen this week better than ever. Our media partner KGTV got a look inside the building today. It's been closed for almost 3 years for renovations. The building is designated as a historic landmark, so that meant that all of the work had to meet federal restoration standards. Returning the garden to its former glory took almost 3 years of planning, demolition, and reconstruction.
As it was in 1915, this building was meant to display botanical wonders from all over the world. So that's what people will see again when they go into this building today, at the end of this week when it opens to the public.
The Botanical Building will make its grand debut at December nights this Friday and Saturday. It's an inside look into one of San Diego's most historic places. A 3-part documentary series showcases the restoration of the Hotel del Coronado, looking into its rich history, its craftsmanship, and cultural significance. Host and executive producer Elsa Sevilla joins me to talk about the launch of these brand new episodes for historic places with Elsa Sevilla on KPBS. Welcome, Elsa.
Thank you for having me. We're so excited. We have 2 episodes that are completed and we're so happy about it. And it talks about the history of the Hotel del Coronado, but it also talks about the restoration. Once it's completed in 2025, probably May, June, it'll be a 7-year restoration, more than $550 million project that restored the historical parts of the Dal. The entire property, and upgraded the entire property as well. It was really neat to see how much was there already and what needed to be restored, and then also what to bring back that was there originally and had been lost through the years. Super exciting.
Well, Elsa, you as a journalist yourself, you take pride in connecting your viewers to history. So the storytelling is a big part of this. How do you connect the photos, the images, the footage, the facts with the storytelling?
Yeah, that's the really intricate part, right? Looking at the Hotel del Coronado, you see so many beautiful elements, especially the Victorian gingerbread architectural design. I think we all fall in love with that, the stained glass windows. But I look at the history, I look at interesting facts, I look at things that people may not know. Definitely the really fun things like the restoration of the historic window at the Hotel Del. It's one of a kind, it's original, and it was in actually bad shape, so the restoration was so important. So telling those kinds of stories, also the veranda, which was lost for like 80 years, and so the Del has been able to bring that back. There's the lobby that has been really well preserved, but some elements were lost, so it was really interesting to bring that back. So bringing all the photos, all the video, all the interviews, all the facts through the last 136 years, putting it all together in a story so that viewers can see it, hear it, understand it, and just really be mesmerized by the whole story of the Dal.
Yeah, and actually we have a sneak peek clip to show our viewers. It's a glimpse of what's in store, so give us a little bit of information about what we're about to see.
Yeah, this clip is about the lobby, and it shows so much of what was already there, how it was restored, and then how certain elements that had been lost were brought back. So that's what this clip is about. And in 2020, the amended master plan restoration focused on the first floor and lobby. Preservation architect David Marshall from Heritage Architecture and Planning helped recreate lost features, including stained glass windows, intricate woodwork, and exterior details. Workers meticulously restored the original detailed woodwork by stripping away layers of paint. The restoration also involved dismantling and numbering each piece of the coffered ceiling for reassembly as new beams were installed to support and expand the lobby's check-in area.
This ceiling is made up of 4 bays, and the bays to my left here or behind me are the original ones, and then these other 2 are recreations or replicas of that. But the process that was involved was we had to document and dismantle that ceiling. So just a big puzzle, basically. So all those individual pieces were labeled and numbered in north, south, east, west.
Historic photos played a crucial role in uncovering missing elements and decor. A rare architectural plan revealed the grand lobby fireplace with a stained glass window above it, both of which were removed. The fireplace due to fire hazard concerns.
We know that it was about 20 feet wide. It was quite large and ornate. We do have the original drawings provided by Reed that show us what it should have looked like. But very ornate. It was supposed to heat the entire lobby.
Very cool, Elsa. Now, from pre-restoration to completion, you followed this entire process, but this isn't really just all about the past. It's about how the past informs the present and even into the future. So what can viewers take away from this?
That's what I love about history, because we can look at the past, be in the present, and look towards the future, and it's all connected. But what I love about history is that it gives us a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, and so everyone can identify with the Hotel Del. We all go visit, even if we don't have relatives in town, or if we do, we take our relatives there. So for us, I mean, we used to take our son to the Del and get ice cream and go through the lobby, and, you know, even for Christmas and stuff like that. So people can just take a lot of nostalgia, a lot of things that, you know, you don't see anymore, the craftsmanship and things like that at the Del, that very few hotels like that are left in the U.S. And so to go and visit the Del, to see the restoration, there's a museum now, there's archives, there's a lot of things that people can actually see, even if they're not staying at the Del. But you get to see what was there in 1887 when they were building it, and then the restoration and to the present. So it's just wonderful.
It's wonderful, and congratulations on finishing the series, and we really look forward to seeing the whole thing. Thanks, Elsa.
Thanks.
And the new series, Historic Places with Elsa Sevilla, Hotel Del Coronado Restoration. It premieres on December 9th with a third episode airing in June of 2025. You can watch it on Mondays at 9 p.m. right after Antiques Roadshow on KPBS television and streaming in the PBS app.
Well, we're starting off the week with pretty steady temperatures. There are some beach hazards to talk about for tomorrow morning and low cloud and fogs that we'll be dealing with. Let's get right into it and start off with what to expect as far as temperatures for tonight, dropping down to 41 in Oceanside, 48 for San Diego, 37 for Mount Laguna. Most of us dealing with partly cloudy skies as we head into the overnight. Tomorrow, we're warming up to 60s and 70s for the most part, 67 there in Oceanside and San Diego, 78 though over in Borrego Springs, and 51 for Mount Laguna. Sticking with the partly cloudy skies for just about everybody. Now, here are the beach hazards I was mentioning. Everyone highlighted in this teal color. That's where we could see some tidal overflow because of some high tides. We're looking at 6 feet high tides at times. So just something to keep in mind for your morning, especially for anyone on the coast here. It's something we had this morning. It'll continue into our Tuesday morning as well. Taking a look at your 5-day outlook for the coast, sticking with some clouds over the next couple of days, and of course those low clouds and fog that could impact visibility, especially on your morning commute. Something to keep in mind there, that maybe you give yourself a little bit of extra time, or just know that you might run into some visibility issues. Starting with 67 for your Tuesday, then by the time we get towards the weekend, we're looking at a bit of a warming trend, ending up with 77 by the time we get to Saturday. Take a look further inland. Tuesday, we're starting off with 72 degrees, continuing to see some of those clouds and fog for the morning hours. Then we're in the 80s by the time we get to Friday and Saturday. 82 is that high for your Saturday. Talking about the mountain 5-day outlook, 51 to start off for your Tuesday high. Then we're going to go down to the 40s for Thursday and warm right back up to the 60s by the time we get to Saturday. Taking a look at the desert 5-day outlook, starting off with 78 for your Tuesday, then we're back into the 80s by the time we get to Thursday, ultimately warming up to 82 for your Friday and 81 for your Saturday. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather's Anna Azalian.
If you're walking through Old Town San Diego State Historic Park, you might notice something new. 2 bright red vending machines, part of a project called Light of the World Giving Machines. So instead of buying a candy bar or a soda for yourself, you can buy something for someone in need. Things like a pair of shoes for a child, a warm blanket, school supplies, meals, or even a fruit tree for a family. The giving machines help support 5 local charities and 2 international charities, and one option helps the historic Old Town Community Foundation.
You can donate to Stop Graffiti and tagging our signs. You can donate to our Clean and Safe program, which helps maintain our streets.
Giving machines have been around since 2017 and helped raise more than $32 million. This year, machines like this one will pop up in more than 100 cities. And tomorrow is Giving Tuesday. It's a movement that hopes to inspire people to celebrate generosity. Michael Yoshida explains how you can make the most of the day.
In a season where your time and wallets may be stretched thin, balancing indulgence and giving back can be tough.
We think, okay, well, if I give my time, I'll have less time, I'll be so stressed. But the reality, the science tells us something very different.
Social psychologist Sarah Conrath says research shows when you give to others, whether it be time or money, you experience psychological and physiological benefits.
Some of my research is showing that people live longer, especially when they're giving their time to others.
Conrath offers 3 things people can think about before giving their time or money. 1, connections. Give with those you care about or give for them. 2, choice. Find a genuine reason to give and find something that fits your natural interest. And finally, choose something where you can see the end result or positive impact your giving has on others.
Make it real and genuine. Give from your heart to things you really care about, to people you care about.
Struggling to find a charity or cause? The nonprofit Charity Navigator can help with a list of about 1.6 million charities in the United States that are registered with the IRS.
Think about, well, what's the difference I want to make in the world? And then the site will really help you kind of refine down and find the organizations that you're looking for. Then go and actually either make a donation, sign up to volunteer with the organization, do something.
In Washington, I'm Michael Yoshida reporting.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Well, thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.